graduated? How are the crabwoods cut? In 1897, radially sawn was most common, not the almost universal flat sawn that's available today. How are they attached? Cut nails or wire nails? Are the joints butted or scarfed? Without recording what is being lost, future generations will have less than what we have now. This is something that should be a concern to the select board and to other groups in town.
Thank you. All right, we're going to start with Karen Rossi of the Rec Commission, which is not, you do not look like Karen Rossi.
You're looking good tonight, Karen.
Thanks. Good evening. The rec committee would like to hold the sponsored exercise classes that are currently being held in the field into the downstairs during the winter months. It would be on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Usually around 15 attendees. Some are older citizens, so the colder weather really affects them a lot. I'd like to start on November 1st and around May 1st or sooner, depending on the weather. And we may bring the Zumba class back if people are interested, because it's going to be inside. We'll make sure everything's done before any dinner times or anything for anybody who's working in the building.
So the fire department doesn't have any concerns?
Nope. We talked to Scott, we talked to Steve, because he's in charge of the buildings, and
Great.
they're okay with it.
Questions, you guys?
And there's nothing already scheduled during those times, Denise?
No.
They can be moved, like the energy committee can be moved to a different room. Or you
Yeah,
could have it
and they
in
can
the
start at
office.
10:30, I think, usually.
Yes, so easy to be looking.
There won't be any equipment that needs to be put away or anything, so.
That's great.
All right.
I think it's, and if they want to add more classes, I think that's a
Yeah,
brilliant idea.
it may attract more people being inside.
Yeah, that's fabulous, thank you. So a resounding yes?
Yeah.
Great,
Fine.
thank you.
You want me to take care of anything now or come back up later?
Go ahead.
So here, I'm back into a predicament where I'm starting to lose vacation time again. It's started at the beginning of this month. So I don't see a scenario where I'm gonna be able to take any vacation time. We've got an officer who's going to be having a baby soon, taking maternity leave. So I'm requesting to purchase a pay in lieu of. I'm not sure if anybody else is in the same position. Scott Nemec might be. I didn't get a chance to talk to him today, so he may come to you. And then I always buy a week the beginning of every year, so when we hit the first of the year, I'll be maxed out again. And that same officer is taking January and February off for maternity, so I won't be taking any vacation time for 2 months either.
Okay.
So, but that's after the first of the year.
Scott will be maxing out.
This would be a special exception request to the board.
Does anyone have any concerns or questions?
No, for the chief?
Yeah.
So I assume at some point the other chief will come before us? Or,
He's in the same situation.
all right. So can we approve Chief Dronsfield's request, and then if Scott and then comes, we can deal with that? 'Cause
Correct.
it's-
I think Denise is not a special exception, but I think you're likely to be coming to the board as well because she's a 10-year employee now and will be eligible.
Great.
Well, typically you don't have to come to the board, it's in the personnel policy.
Because the chief's already had one this fiscal year, I believe, right?
Yeah, I do on the
So
beginning
he's-
of every.
He's looking for an exception to the policy manual.
But you would be just the,
Denise
This
is
is
just
my
a
ten, yeah.
normal.
all right. Do we need to make a motion? Or just say it?
I would make a motion to grant the chief an exception.
I move that we grant the chief an exception to holiday pay.
Pay in lieu
of. Pay in lieu of.
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Emily Woodall, library trustees, and Deborah Standa, and
You get me.
oh, great, well, you're lovely, nice to see you.
You flipped it on. Congratulations.
Awesome.
I Actually, Denise did, I put them on disc so I could project them, but Susan had copies.
You're ready.
decided not
We went
to.
overboard here. So,
But we can
Does
make like a
anyone
puzzle out of
audience
it.
need a copy?
Does anyone want to see what we're talking about?
yeah, I'm happy to pass them on.
There you go.
Good, some extras.
Anybody interested?
Or you just have, you can make them, cut it.
It's the illustrations we're looking at.
Yeah, we like that.
It is kind of my forte.
So for the renovation, the Milestone Engineering has a project manager that's been coming here every day at 7:00.
Great.
And they are requesting that they're gonna bring in and put a trailer alongside the town hall. And that will be his place. He's been sitting in his car.
Yep.
So, and they're gonna take care of heat, whatever they need, they're gonna take care of it right there. And they also, I mean, there's been a little bit, the porta potty got put on the wrong side at the beginning, that's getting moved over.
Perfect.
So that'll be next to it. And I did speak with, I emailed with Steve Bullock today, and he understands, he said, why are you doing it? We explained that it seemed to make the most sense to be close to that building so that they can take a clean sweep with the snow. We did it away from it, and we've got between things, so just around there. And he and Haley had the opportunity to walk the property today as well.
Great.
And so he's in agreement. And the other thing too is that the contractor parking would be in front of the annex building.
All right.
And they are only here Monday through Friday, and they are here roughly 7 AM to 3 PM. So we don't believe it'll be any impact on the annex whatsoever, or the historical component of that. So everybody seems to be in agreement, so if you agree, we're all set.
Fabulous.
The only glitch, I met with Steve and Haley this morning, and Don, contract was here as well, and Haley did agree to move the stick library,
Okay.
unfortunately,
Yes,
because
Steve did bring
we
that
were
up.
gonna
So it's
use
like
that
new
as
locations anyway.
as the initial pass for snow plowing before they go to the other side.
Yeah, and I did ask Steve, when I responded to him on that point too, and I asked him what his suggestion was for a permanent, so we're not moving this every seasonally. And he didn't respond. I'll check in with him. in the morning.
Haley had some ideas that she talked about
Oh,
with
maybe
us.
I'll
and
check in
so
with her then and see
she's
what
probably-
we're doing.
yeah,
Yeah.
Communication is key.
The only other difficulty that came up was they need 60 amp service for the office trailer. And I don't believe we can easily run 60 amp service from the town hall because of the age of the wiring and equipment, so.
We don't have to stand down there anywhere, do we?
Yeah, I don't know what we've got, and the wires are
Can't imagine.
not in great
Is it
condition,
portable
so.
here?
They are actually, I think, gonna be able to tie directly into the line from the pole overhead and get to the trailer, but they weren't sure. And they also weren't sure how they were gonna get the line high enough.
He said he would also bring a generator if he needed it. He told me that last week.
That'd be so calm and relaxing.
Yes.
We all love.
Deb, if you just have the contractor get in touch with me for security, so I have a number of who to call if there's an issue with the trailer during the night.
Oh,
If there's
absolutely.
gonna be any valuables in it, something like that.
If he visits it on the weekend, you know who's there and stuff.
Yeah, people start going in. And the other thing I wanted to mention, it's not on here, but it, walking the property, we, Eversource put their junction box in the middle of the path between the library here, the tree is here, they put it smack in the middle
Oh,
without asking any questions, so I said, no, and it's being moved.
okay, great.
So they are gonna have to come back with a backhoe to go out a little bit and then turn that corner. But, and if you go over by the tree, it's already spray painted in pink.
You can see where it's going.
Where it's going, yeah. And it's much better. I talked to Haley, thought maybe a small fence and some plants or something, and we'll really want to see it.
Great.
We talked to Haley as well this morning about putting some kind of large flat rock on that corner. The gas line is buried very shallowly, much more shallowly than
adjacent to the
DPW
library,
realized, right in front of the library.
Okay.
As you look at the library,
Okay.
right corner of the old schoolhouse portion,
Yeah.
just right now, if somebody backed a truck 1.5 feet too far or ran a snowplow 1.5 feet into the lawn, they would sever the gas line. So the gas company's suggestion was to put something large and heavy
You
over it.
can't move one person at all, so it would be like clear not to, yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
So Steve had given Haley some suggestions,
All right.
I'm sorry, you
Check your monitor.
and we were going to go look for large flat rocks.
You're plentiful anyway.
just saw a bunch of those in American Stonehenge this weekend, so go pick their
I
shards.
didn't want us to grab them and
You
bring them
know,
to Lee,
I
but
think you're right. What were you gonna say?
There's tons of daily.
Ask him for a rock.
Night maneuvers?
Is there anything else?
No, that was it.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Can we talk about something in the same location?
Sure.
And the chief's here, so this is the reason I'm asking. At some point, I think, maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth, but the storage thing that's behind the hobo shed, did you guys want that? Can we get rid of that?
Yeah, we had talked about bringing that over here when it was ready to be moved.
Is that something that maybe you and Steve or whoever needs to
Okay.
have a conversation? And because if you guys can use it, there's nothing in it, I don't think.
Is that the one with the fence around it?
yeah, there are two storage units behind there that we labeled the vault. One of them has a good deal of the town clerk, tax collector's old files in it. I'm not sure exactly what. It has Linda's personal lock on it, so I'm gonna have to get some snips and get in there and see. I'll probably get in touch with Liz and determine what that is. The other one, I believe, is empty now. I had helped Haley put some library shelving in there, but my understanding is that went to the transfer station a couple of weeks ago.
Well, maybe we can facilitate the move so if the chief could use it for.
Yeah, I'm sure S&J, they have their special trailer that moves those, they'll grab it for us.
Oh, okay, all right, great, thanks. Sorry.
No worries, we're all set. Have that here, and then it went away. There we go. All right, so we're gonna move on to regular business, our town administrator.
Sure. The first item I had was the memorandum of understanding between the select board and the Historical Society for use of the annex building and museum building at the center of town. There had been a suggestion to incorporate a few words into this at your prior meeting, and looking at it, I didn't highlight them. I don't remember exactly what I added, but I know we added verbatim what was discussed at the meeting. And I'm bringing it back, so.
I have just this.
Yeah, the Historical Society agrees to notify the select board of any safety issues with regards to the building structure. Is that no question boards?
Is that the only thing to do with something else?
That was really all we could find in the minutes, and we listened to the recording as well.
Okay.
Do you guys have any comments?
It just sticks in my memory that there was two things that were tweaked, or supposed to be tweaked, but.
Well, I can give Jan a call and bring this back. I mean, it's not.
Okay.
I just want to say I did some looking into, because basically what this MOU is saying is that the town of Lee is completely responsible as taxpayers to fund the Historical Society. So if we're going to make that choice, I just wanted to be aware of the facts. So I asked a local realtor how much it would cost if you had a building that size with heating, plumbing, heating, electrical, snow removal, complete maintenance of the building, and they said, you know, really kind to offer would be $1,200 a month. So that comes out to $14,400. Then looking at the historical museum train, whatever that's called. We were saying, you know, if it was considered storage or if it was used for something else, you could rent it for $300 or so. So that's about $18,000 a year that we are actively saying we are donating to the Lee Historical Society. Legally, the only nonprofits we can donate to are the wording I'm not going to go into because I don't love it in the state statute, but basically people that are in need economically, or people in need health-wise or age-wise. There is a small exception for a museum, as long as it is open to the public, which ours is, and provides something to the community. So I was hoping someone from the Historical Society would be here tonight to let us know how many people are visiting, because I did a quick estimate. if we look at it and they're open 52 weeks a year, which is every single Saturday, which I don't think they are, but it's, let's just say, that would cost the town about $350 every time we open it to have that available to people. If, let's say, 15 people came a month, then that would be 180 people a year, and that's about $100 per person to visit the museum. Because it is about 4.5 times more than the greatest donation we make to any other nonprofit in our town. I just wanted us to know that information. It doesn't mean I'm saying we should or shouldn't do that. I just think that to go forward acting as if it's no big deal and it's not a problem, or it's free, is unreasonable, because you could actually be getting rent from a nonprofit for those facilities, you could be using them for something else, you could be saving the money for the town itself. So I just wanted to put that out there, just so it's on the record that, you know, that it is an expense, and it's something we can make a conscious decision about, but I don't want to just blindly continue to go forward. I did notice on their sign that they're calling the entire area now some sort of historical.
I think it's the Historical Society Museum Complex.
Yeah, so it's renamed an area we didn't know about. And there has been situations where we don't know, as a select board of town, that they're choosing to make something historical building that isn't in the best interest of the community at all times. And so that's fine. I think we need to go forward consciously. When we were told that they were going to annex, it was for some storage. Well, they did some things, and then now they're there, and now that's a museum, but they're keeping the train depot. And so I just feel like we need to be cognizant that there is a cost related. It's a choice we can make as a community, but I do feel like there should be a line in the budget, because we are hosting a nonprofit for free. And in the MOU, it basically said nothing is their expense, and we are responsible, which means as a renter for free, we have to solve any broken problems and fix anything that goes wrong. And that does mean prioritizing a nonprofit that's open one time a week, I don't even think every week of the year, over needs of other buildings. So just,
I think it's April through October.
okay, even less. So now we're talking about a few $100s per visit per person. So I do think we should make that choice with that awareness and really thinking, is that the number one best way to use that resource and that money? If the answer is yes, that's fabulous. I just don't want to continue to do the thing where we're like, oh, I don't know, it's free, it's fine. I want to be cognizant that it does have an expense. That's all. And I think we're going to discuss it again.
Okay, yeah, I will, if it's agreeable with the board, I will run this by Ms. Allen and make sure that I haven't missed one of the points that we agreed to.
And I would, just suggest, I will not myself be here in years ahead, but going through all the other historical societies in the area, it is very, very rare to have the town even, donating the facility, let alone all these expenses. So it's possible as well to say, we would like to say we'll host you, for this many years at a full expense, and then we'd like to ask, because, there are a lot of grants and opportunities. You can get interns, you can open up for more days of the week if you have more to offer. I just want to make sure that we're really thinking about this, because typically towns don't host museums. They can help, but we are funding the entire operation. So let's do that thoughtfully and be aware of it. Anything else? Do you want to respond or anything? No? Okay.
Do I have to? I don't have to.
No, I'm asking if you want to. Give me the opportunity. I don't want to be the only one to say something on it.
I have a question.
Yes.
John Tappan. This building, wasn't it donated to the town by the Historical Society?
I have no idea if that's possible.
It was.
Okay, that's great.
Just among everything that should be mentioned.
That's fabulous. I appreciate that. All right. The annex was built, donated?
The annex or the trains?
No.
The freight depot was
The
given
freight
to the
depot.
town in 1974. There's an agreement, the town should have a copy of the agreement, but the town agreed to accept it and also to maintain it.
Mhm.
So,
That's great.
and the thing is, in terms of your numbers, we're not outlaying that particular one, you're looking to get revenue. That revenue, that, they don't even have half of that in terms of even, so if you get into wanting to charge them, you're gonna put them out of business.
And I'm not saying to charge them, I'm just saying let's make an observation that we could rent that building out to a different nonprofit and get that revenue. And it could be a nonprofit that's really struggling to find an affordable place like that to be in. So to donate it without acknowledging the expense that it is, I just was trying to say, let's be aware. And that could be a value choice that we make as a community. I just think it should be a
If the town wants to use the annex for something else, just like we talked to the library about using the town hall, it's not forever, it's temporary, and that's what we said to the historical society too about the annex. If that building in the future goes away, they can't use it anymore, or if you find some other purpose for it, it goes away. The museum itself, the freight depot, not the train station.
I asked what it was called. No one said
That's okay.
anything.
It's a freight depot. They can use that building forever and ever and ever. It was their building, they're doing it in town with the stipulation that the town maintain it. The town actually owns it.
But not, the town owns the land underneath
I know
it.
the town owns the building.
Was it donated with the stipulation they get to use it forever and that we maintain it for free?
That's why I said, have the town's got a copy of the agreement that was signed in 1974.
Yeah, I can pull the minutes of the agreement.
So if we choose not to maintain it, then they would have the right to just take it and put it wherever else they'd like, but it's on town property, so.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I don't know all the language in terms of the agreement.
I just want to have, just like with the library, we've asked to have a really clean relationship where we can understand and they can go forward and just know what is it we expect, what are we talking about? I just think we should have an open conversation if we're choosing to make this decision going forward. I don't want to continue to just kind of quietly do things without pointing it out. I want to be factual and honest and have it in there. And that MOU very clearly states that the entire thing would be our responsibility, so.
Because those two buildings are the town's property, and the building underneath it. And I think previous boards have given their extension in terms of that particular relationship. So you would be breaking their particular agreements that they had with that particular organization, which I suppose you could do.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying I think that we should be honest about what we're donating to one group in the town on an annual basis, so that we're aware, because the relationship when they were in a building that had no heat and no electricity, that was open once a month.
It has heat and has electricity.
No, I'm talking about the freight depot. That
It
was
has
the
heat and
relationship.
electricity.
Okay, well, that
I think you need to
building,
get your facts straight before you bring all this stuff to people's attention.
I'm
Just like the comment that Mr. Tappan said.
I appreciate that. What I'm trying to talk about is the annex. And what we're doing is talking about the freight depot, and that's fine. But what I'm trying to say is, those relationships never were based on the annex. And when the annex was presented, it was to put storage in. And now the annex is becoming a museum for a historical society. We should make that choice as a community if that's a value. I'm not saying it's not. I think it's a fabulous thing. I love the Historical Society. I'm just saying, let's say it out loud and be honest about it. Because I feel like there has been a lot of movements around. And when somebody puts a sign up that says, this is now the historical complex,
Well,
what else are we planning on taking over next?
I think you need to look at the minutes in terms of maybe Andy and Denise can go back and look, because the board gave them permission to do that.
To call it the historical
No,
complex?
not the complex, in terms of using it for part of their museum stuff. We gave permission to do that.
First, it was for storage, then they said, could we just use an area, we'd like to use that, and then they said it's hard because we can't use the upstairs, so can we use this? Then they said we want to continue to use the freight, so the relation, it just keeps kind of growing, so let's be honest.
We gave permission for every single one of those changes.
Yeah.
So,
That's
I'm not
great.
sure what your,
I'm asking for transparency, that's all. And I never once said what we should or shouldn't do, I was just saying, let's lay out what we're proposing in this MOU so that it's clear. Did you want to make a comment?
Yes, please.
Ann Tappan, 187 Stepping Stones Road. Just a question about the charges. The real estate agent talked about rental and snow plowing. That parking lot is plowed because it's a town facility, and they're plowing it. It used to be the town hall, the library. Does the library, do they get charged for the plowing now? They don't. And so, but there's a lot of conversation that could be done here, but I would be careful about piling on possible charges. And parking just jumped out that we don't charge each building the plowing fees. That's just part of the town business.
Correct, but if you had somebody who took it over, as I was just saying, if you had a private operation, you could either charge them for that plowing, or they could provide their own plowing if you had a situation like that. That's all I'm saying. Thank you for the clarification.
Does the board want me to get clarification on the complex designation? I think that might be important for you, because you've given them permission for 2 buildings. They have a sign in the green space that says that this is now the Historical Museum Complex.
Yes.
I don't know if that includes if they think that includes the grounds, the open space there,
Or just those 2 buildings. But the picture is of all the buildings, underneath the words complex. Yeah.
I just saw that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Anyone else have anything else, or should we move on? Okay. Just waiting for my thing to load, sorry, guys. All right. Oh, did you want to go on from the historical society one?
Do you have any more things?
I had nothing more about the Historical Society.
Great, so on to the next.
Volunteer dinner, food. Had a couple of discussions. At the last meeting, we had a little bit of discussion behind closed doors, had some discussion out here, and then we told Denise, or the board told Denise, that she should make arrangements for food. And as I was thinking about that, I thought, well, we have money in the budget for food. The board had clearly indicated that they wanted no money spent on food. And
No, we wanted to spend money on food.
Okay,
Okay.
good. I just wanted to clarify before I
Yes.
threw
100% money on
to the
food,
wind.
the budget, yes.
It was my understanding Denise was gonna find out what the options were and bring back the options to us, so we knew how much that would be.
Okay, and I think
So,
we've got
yeah.
$1,000.
So she would be pretty spectacular. She could provide food for no money. That's pretty good. So, yeah,
Well,
I
there were some
was,
conflicting things that.
And I know what we said was we weren't taking donated food, but that was going to be asked to be reimbursed. So we were very clearly laying out that if you're buying food and if you bring something other than the food that we bought, that's on you.
Yep. So we'll have an agreement on what the food is that we're paying for. If you want to bring more to the party, great, but that's a donation. That we're probably exactly where the confusion was.
Okay, Tom already addressed the payment in lieu of vacation discussion. The next item I had was the New Hampshire DES ARM grant. This was, we had received $245,000 for the Chelsea Brook project. I think Steve's notified you, and I sent out an email. We're going to get another $108,000 of state ARPA money under the ARM DES designation for that project. We'll pretty much pay for everything except the engineering that we'll be responsible for. Steve had paperwork that the state needed us to sign. I went back and forth with Denise and Steve about whether this could be signed before you had a public hearing to accept the additional funding. Steve was anxious to have it signed. We didn't have enough time to schedule the public hearing from the time we got official notification of the extra money coming. So we'll have the public hearing on October 16th.
Thursday?
Thursday,
Oh,
Monday.
Monday.
And we've advertised that as required. I've got the paperwork here. If the board feels comfortable signing it now, and I believe it's just the chairperson's signature, you can certainly do that. The DPW director's rationale to me was they're not going to turn down $108,000. So have them sign it, but I wanted to give the board the
Yeah,
option.
we'll have the public hearing and then
To accept the money.
I think you could say that you need the signatures to get the money, and once you receive the money, you'll be accepting it. But it was a little convoluted, so I want to bring it to the board rather than just put it in the consent agenda.
appreciate less convoluted, more, that's great. Today is the second. we're initialing each page?
Does it require?
Grantee
It's a federal form, it
initials.
should.
Yeah, probably.
And then we all just sign it?
There's only one.
No, it's only just you.
Okay,
I think it's just the chair on the actual signature line.
beautiful. Does anybody want to go into the next thing, so you're not waiting for me to?
We'll wait, we'll wait.
There's a lot of pages, you guys.
Do you want just a signature or have to be done?
Oh, that's a great idea. So those are all set. Same letter, twice you can do it. All right. Yeah, so we all signed the last one, the three of us. All right. Fabulous. This is underneath.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, the last item I had were the RFQs that we received from the town office building. I had initially spoken with 8 firms. 2 of them told me pretty quickly that they were not interested. Spoke to 6 firms after that who had an interest, and we received 2 RFQs. One from Carino Construction, who's probably most familiar with the project and the site, and the other from Martini Northern Winter Holden. Holden, not Holden. Which are, their New Hampshire regional office is in Newmarket. Both of them have a number of impressive municipal projects they've done and private projects. Don't know if the board members have reached a decision from previewing the information of who they're most interested in, or if they want to interview both firms.
I'd like to do both.
I'm glad you said that, because I was sitting here going through it, and I'm like, I just don't know if I have enough information. So yeah, so asked to have them both. And then,
Okay.
are we gonna go ahead and use that Wednesday that we talked about?
Yeah.
And see if they're available. Do they know about that date?
They do,
Okay.
give them those dates, so.
Okay.
And I will contact them both and say the board would like to visit with both.
So Bowen did not submit anything.
No, they called me and said that they had decided they were not interested in bidding due to the number of projects they have, and they also do not like design build.
Okay.
And that was a concern with 2 of the firms in the Concord area too, that they don't like the design build process.
So it's the 11th?
Yes, I believe it is.
6
On
o'clock?
the master schedule.
What is on the?
11th, correct, possible,
Wednesday, October 11th.
at 6 o'clock.
So we'll have one at 6 and one at 7?
Can certainly do that, or give you, if the other one wraps up early, we'll have a little bit of time to talk about it.
Great, thank you.
And both of these folks did attend the site visit, and both with myself and Katrin, and they've both been back on their own as well to poke around the woods.
Okay.
And that was all I had.
Okay. So on to the consent agenda. Move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second.
Got a cemetery.
You can have it.
to add to the-
Thank you.
All in favor? Do we need a roll call vote? All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Hi.
Great, so
Much
moved.
thing.
In the interim, when we're burning up some ink, could I have one of the library trustees maybe make an announcement about Judy?
Oh, the award that Judy won?
Excuse me?
The award?
Yes.
Oh,
It'd be nice to let everybody know she's wonderful and
sorry, okay. I don't remember the technical name.
I don't either.
But I don't.
Really should do it.
She won a great award.
Yay.
the chief knows about it.
I know.
Citizen of the Year.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
Oh.
That's
It's
fabulous.
really
Great pay lottery.
awesome.
Yeah.
It was in the e-crier, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And the
No, I-
Not yet.
neighborhood.
No, it should be.
Not yet.
So this is the Great Bay Rotary
Yeah.
Shane.
Award?
That's great.
Yep. So congratulations to her. I thought
Yes.
we should publicly announce it
Sorry.
and celebrate
Oh,
it.
thank
so-
you.
We'll mention it
Thank
to
you for
Haley
that.
so she can make more of a,
Yeah.
Fanfare
We need a big
about it.
sign out front or
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
That's two Lee
Yeah.
residents.
Nice,
in
Yep.
a row.
I will
Yep.
definitely mention that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I guess, nobody else, I don't know, I was talking to Candace today, and she said that
So we're not meeting on
it's a trend or something, but is there no other applications from anybody else? Or will be- yeah,
No, she's just that awesome.
She's just,
That's fine.
My understanding is she's pretty much single-handedly running the food pantry.
Yeah.
I mean, always there, always, I mean,
Yeah.
other people are volunteering, but she's the cement that brings it all together.
well, I thought it'd be important just to let.
Yeah,
people-
yeah, yeah. I'll definitely mention it and
Yep.
hopefully she can.
It's my understanding
speak the
Candace
next
is
time.
writing up something to give to Denise for the e-crier, but. See that filled space?
Thank you.
You weren't sitting there with people watching their names.
While we were doing that, we were noticing that we had originally put a possible select board meeting on October 4th, but I think we don't need that because we need more time for them to come, correct?
Okay, and then it looks like the one that we have on the 11th isn't on the calendar on the website yet.
So we'll just add that. So move the one from the 4th to the,
Well, that one, fourth one's not on the calendar either.
Okay.
We were gonna figure out if we were meeting or not.
perfect. So we're gonna be meeting on the next time the select board will be meeting on, is on.
Well, we're meeting this Thursday.
Yes, it's on here. I have so many things that day. ABC at 6, perfect. And then after that, it'll be the 11th, and then after that, it'll be the 16th. And then after that, it'll be,
The 19th.
there's an ABC committee on the,
No, there's
Well-
volunteer for year on the 19th.
oh, volunteer, there it is, volunteer. I was looking for a different thing. Perfect, that's great. Okay, lots of fun, exciting nights ahead with the select board.
Maybe then, just throwing ahead that the volunteer leader word is on the 19th, so maybe Denise, if we want to talk about food on the 5th for like 5 minutes, beginning of the APC, or 5 minutes at the end of the APC, or if we have to make a decision, we probably have to make it on the
Or
5th.
you can give it to me if it's an ABC meeting, so you don't have to be here.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
no, I
that's
wasn't
right.
stressing you had to be here, sorry.
Otherwise I have to pay her.
Yeah,
Yeah, please don't do that.
let's just.
I just meant like, we need the information.
Perfect. Any old business that we're gonna update?
I don't have a solid estimate yet, but I have been in contact with the folks at Canon regarding digitalization. We've just redone our lease and copier agreement with them. A little bit better machine for a little bit less money than we were paying due to technology changes. But David, who is the documentation specialist with Canon, is in the process of, he's having some difficulty quantifying. They have this standard survey that I completed and sent back to him, and he said, could you send me a picture of your record storage of some of the paperwork you have? So I sent him pictures of the record storage room, and he was trying to quantify which were full-size boxes, which were half-size boxes, which were old line boxes, and how much they might hold in terms of paper. And
Got it.
so
We don't know.
we're close to a guesstimate of what we might have for documents that would need to be scanned, but
Yeah.
All right, anything else? All right, new business. We wanted to discuss the CIP process because it's gotten complicated. Would we like to have anyone else from the CIP committee come join us at the hot mic?
Sure.
Come on.
Stand up there?
Yeah. Maybe you're more comfortable on
Please
this
say
side.
your
of the
name
table,
and your address.
Hi, I'm Dave Cedarholm, 81 Fox Garrison Road.
Fabulous.
So, yeah, we have struggled a little bit, get moving, mostly because we don't really have much data. We do have some recent data, but it does require input from the department heads. Had a good meeting today with Steve Bullock and John Tappan. And I think it was my first opportunity to really get introduced to the financial planning tool. It's an amazing document. And one of the things we discussed actually at the last meeting was how our efforts on the CIP committee seem very redundant compared, relative to all the information that is in the financial planning tool, and today truly convinced me of that. It really doesn't make sense to create a separate spreadsheet when all of the information and more is in the financial planning tool, and it would make a whole lot of sense, I think, to create the spreadsheet as a module of the financial planning tool, another tab that is essentially a summary of those CIP items that are identified in the financial planning tool on each one of those tabs. I'm not sure if John agrees. One of John's topics, and I'm sure John will chime in, is what the definition of a capital improvement is in regard to the statute. And I actually did some investigating today, and I found a really great write-up by Christine Fillmore from the Municipal Association, and this was published in Town and City Magazine in September, October of 2014. And one of the things that John points out is that the CIP statute only talks about projects. And in respect to funding projects. And according to this write-up, what Christine identifies here in the statute, the CIP is a planning tool under the law. The sole purpose and effect of the capital improvements program shall be to aid the mayor or selectmen and the budget committee in their consideration of the annual budget. And that's RSA 674:5. She points out that CIP needs to be tied to the goals of the master plan, and it puts the operational budget and capital budget in perspective. A good CIP is based on the existing fixed asset inventory and presents a replacement and renewal schedule that makes sense. It also requires cooperation between department heads, governing body, town manager, town city manager, and planning officials. She goes on to say, it is important to note that without a CIP in place, municipality is not permitted to enact growth management ordinances under 674:22I. And that would be like an impact fees. Well, we don't have any impact fees. We don't have a growth management ordinance. So really our sole purpose is for helping us develop and manage the budget. I also want to point out a couple of things. So what is a capital improvement? So she describes that in the most general sense, capital improvement is something that has a high cost and a useful life of several years. Doesn't say much beyond that, but a high cost and useful life of several years means different things for different communities depending on the size of the community. For example, City of Franklin sets its capital improvement threshold at $25,000 with a useful life of 7 or more years. A smaller community like Plymouth, which only has 6,500 residents, their threshold is $10,000 with a useful life of 5 years. An even smaller community may define a project having a useful life of at least 3 years, requiring a gross expenditure of $5,000. So that kind of, I think, fits where we are. What goes into a CIP? Well, according to the RSA, of course, you have to have it in order to adopt growth management ordinance. CIP shall include the following: address capital improvement projects for a period of at least 6 years. Classify projects according to urgency and need for implementation, include a timeline of implementation, take into account public facility needs that are indicated by development of the shown master plan. And the CIP may include the following: estimated costs of each project, probable operation and maintenance costs, and probable revenues from each project. And she also goes on to say that it can include highway equipment, that equipment required to maintain a project and keep it in working order. And I would like to add too, I did some more research. The definition of a CIP, a capital improvement from the IRS's perspective is, capital improvement as defined by the IRS is a change made to a property that you own that does at least one of the following: add to the value of the property, prolong the property's useful life, and adapt the property for new uses. So a lot of what we do is prolonging a property's useful life. For example, I understand now we have a real problem with the window frames and the door frames in this building. Well, knowing that, the value of the property is diminished because of that. So if we want to prolong useful life and bring the value back up to where it is, we've got to do that. And so replacing all of them or one of them could be considered a capital improvement. And the equipment needed to do it is part of that. So all of that stuff is what is in our financial planning tool.
And where we got in trouble, I'll put on my CIP hat, is that some of the biggest purchases we have don't fit within those definitions, like saving for a fire truck. So challenging, because tasked with the goal of making sure we maintain, help long-term planning and figure out what's on warrant articles, but also trying to figure out what the definition is. So it's been a very complicated process, which is why the select board needs to decide.
Well, and maybe some of those assets are not in what we refer to as the capital improvements program, but they can be in a capital plan.
Right.
And we certainly need to save for that fire truck or bond that fire truck. And just because it doesn't fit somebody's interpretation of a statute, I think we would need to be a whole lot more careful about how whatever it is we fits the statute, if it had something to do with the growth management ordinance, because that's really the only legal hook that is attached to a CIP. So, this is just a planning tool, for heaven's sakes.
So you're asking the board to define what the
Capital improvement is,
Yeah.
what the purpose of the CIP is, and it can be more broad than what is, what someone's interpretation of the statute is in regard to what is a project. Statute doesn't define what a project is. And when this building was a project that was dreamed up 25 years ago, we're still working on maintaining and prolonging the useful life of this project.
Yeah, just from a purely selfish point as a town administrator, I don't particularly care what's in the CIP, but the CIP is one of those reports when you apply for a grant or apply for aid, that type of thing. The questions that qualify you and get you a good place in line frequently start with, do you have an updated master plan? Do you have an updated CIP? Do you have a hazard mitigation plan? So whether you come to terms with what exactly is in it, I think it's still a really good idea for us to have an updated capital improvement plan, just for those reasons.
Sure. And that's a really good point. Our master plan, one of the master plan chapters is transportation. And each chapter in the master plan defines goals. So One of the goals, the first goal is analyze the current road infrastructure and develop a plan for safety improvements and a plan for road reconstruction. Second goal is systematically upgrade the fleet to newer equipment. Next goal, implement the programs in place to replace the 4 bridges and 3 culverts that have been, that have not been replaced. And the last is ensure the current highway buildings are maintained to address current future needs. So, so, hey, we get pretty specific in our plan about, public works stuff.
Mhm.
I just want everybody to know this whole problem is Dave Sidderholm's problem, because he's the one that brought up capital improvements plan. How many years ago, Dave? 12?
Like 25 years ago.
Yeah, that's why. So it's really Dave's fault, so just so everybody's aware, so.
Yeah.
And we've been getting grants and help and assistance ever since, so shame on you.
It was not well received.
No, it
until
wasn't.
I
It
was,
wasn't. It took a while for,
It
yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're here,
Yeah.
and now we need to know, what does the select board want us to define? The monetary amount and
I'm
the,
curious to hear what John has.
yes.
John Tappan again. So primary source for what should be in the CIP is, of course, the state statute. And I think that a secondary source would be the state institution that is to provide direction to planning boards when they create a capital improvement program. And that's the Office of Planning and Development. And they update their handbook every year. The most current one is 2022. They haven't done a 2023 yet. And that states, capital improvements program, known by the acronym CIP, links local infrastructure and equipment investments with master plan goals, land use ordinances, and economic development. A capital improvements program bridges the gap between planning and spending, between the visions of the master plan and the fiscal realities of improving and expanding community facilities. A CIP is an outline of anticipated expenditures for capital projects projected over a period of at least 6 years. Capital projects are those that relate to infrastructure and the purchase of land, and in some cases, engineering studies. Capital projects do not include regular maintenance and operations. I think the problem comes with the expectation that the CIP is going to tell you everything that you need to save in town-created trust and reserve funds in order to expend, in order to be able to purchase any capital improvements that the town may need in the future. I think that is an expectation that comes from when it was first, the idea of a capital improvements program was first presented. And it certainly comes from the way it attempted to perform in the past. Now you have a bit of a problem between FPT, which was originally the select board's tool to use, for which the select board decides, number one, what are we going to spend out of the capital reserve funds? So that means anything in the future that you think you're going to get the money from the capital reserve fund should be listed in the FPT so that you put in adequate amount of money. But that doesn't mean that that item necessarily is an item in the CIP. There's nothing that says that for the trustees of trust funds, that they need to check to see that that item was in the CIP before they release funds for it. It's just, is it properly authorized? Do they have the documentation to show what was purchased and paid for? And does it fit the purpose of the fund? And if it passes that, the trustees of trust funds should release the money for it, whether it costs $200,000 or $1,000. And they have in the past.
Thank you, appreciate you coming up.
So I think that there's a question about going forward, what should be in the CIP what is the expectation of how complete is it going to be? And particularly, how focused should it be on those other things that Dave mentioned? Which is, what other sources of funding are available? What are the ongoing costs going to be from that acquisition? That's something that the FPT tries to address, but sometimes it gets overlooked. And then, what tools does the ABC have when they make their recommendations?
Thank you. So one of the things I always think of, if every single person in the town resigned and somebody wanted to, had to fill in all these positions, could things go forward? And so one of the concerns that we should be aware of is that the FPT does not belong yet fully to town. It is managed by a volunteer. We don't have access to just use whenever we want. So if we're going to use the FPT going forward, we're going to have to be aware that that needs to become town property if we're going to count on it. The other thing is, if the CIP committee would love to just focus on buildings projects, that's great. We're just saying, does somebody else have this other part if of all the expensive trucks and those kinds of things? If the CIP only does what's in that narrowly defined RSA. So the question from the CIP committee is, and every time we try to start getting started, we have this conversation where we go around and around, and that's why we're not getting anywhere. So we very much want tonight to have the select board say, and I'm happy to remove myself if that's helpful, because I am on the CIP committee, but I very much want to know, what would you like the CIP committee on an annual basis to give information for the select board so that they can make future choices?
Can we see if any other member of the CIP committee has something to
Yes, that'd be great.
add? Maybe?
Thank you for being here.
Pat Barber, 140 Wednesday Hill Road. I'm the pragmatist, I think, in the group. My goal is, we want to know what you folks want us to present to the budget committee.
Correct.
And there, as John pointed out, there's some overlap between the financial planning tool and what we think should be in the CIP. My other concern is, I think we've gone back to the department heads multiple times requesting the same information. They're confused. We're confused. We need some clarity.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess,
Go.
oh, sorry.
I just have one quick
Oh,
question.
yeah,
Yeah, Deborah Shanda, 18 Hill Farm Road. I'm just curious why, I'm thinking of it from a business perspective, why a new vehicle, be it a fire truck, whatever it would be, wouldn't be a project. I mean, other companies budget for that kind of thing, and it's a long range. I was gonna say it goes out beyond 6 years, but it would seem to me that anything that you perceive to need going forward, you would want to have a placeholder for that within your CIP.
Correct. Whenever we bring that up, that's a discussion that happens. So, yes, so we can, no, that's fair. We just have to have the conversation so that we stop having that conversation. Thank you, appreciate that. So do we want to go ahead and budget for everything that is large, or do we want to just budget for buildings? And then who's going to take care of making sure we're budgeting for the other things? Those are the questions we just have to answer.
I feel like a lot of work is done already by the financial planning tool, which no one wants to have to recreate. I guess where I thought the CIP had a standing in this process is to be looking at the financial planning tool and looking at the things that are coming up in that next 6 years, going, yes, we really are gonna do this in the 6 years, or no, we're not, we need to move this further out, or we suggest that you move it out. I mean, I know you don't really tell me what to do, but what are the projects coming? What are we actually saying? Mr. Tappan will tell you there's quite a few things on the list that we don't know how we're going to pay for, and if the CIP looks at the master plan and looks at the list and realizes there's something on that's not being paid for, we need to get on that. So I guess that was kind of where I thought the rules, you know, if the rec commission says for the 1 millionth time that they're going to build a tennis court, like, that's not happening.
So the definition that we need is what are things? So are they everything over a certain dollar amount? Are they everything that only fits within the RSA? What are things? What's the dollar value and what's the distance of time? When we have that, we can rock out a beautiful thing for you.
I mean, I would say that any, because the question is, what can we absorb in our budget,
Mhm.
right? Like, if something broke and we hadn't planned for it, what can we actually pay for?
Mhm.
If we can't absorb it, then we would have to save for it, then I guess I want someone to be paying attention.
Great. So what is that number?
I don't know the answer to that question.
I'm not going to answer your question until later.
Oh, okay.
My vision is the CIP is our investigative arm. They're the ones that go out and look for things. In terms of one of the things that I would like us to do is have them look at the master plan. Does that match up with what we're planning for? If the answer is yes, excellent. If it's not, then they have to realign it for us in terms of what they're suggesting. And in terms of, like for instance, there's the fire truck in there. I don't think they need to investigate. We need a new fire truck. The fire truck is spec'd out by the fire department. But if we need a new piece of fire equipment that we don't currently have, I would expect them to have the conversation, find out what the options, work with the fire chief to bring that to us in terms of that particular plan. So anything that's in the financial tool that's a replacement. That's
How are you going to
replacement all the time.
remember to save for the fire truck then? What's the thing that's going to remind the select board to save for that?
The financial planning tool will remind us because it's already in there.
So continue using the financial planning tool, so getting that
Yes.
control
Yeah.
town.
Yeah,
side.
one of the things, at least in my vision, the financial planning tool and the CIP are two different things. They're not the same thing. And I think if you guys are looking for a dollar number, I don't really care what the dollar number is. If there's a thing that the chief needs that's worth $10,000 and our limit, we say it's 25, I think they still should be looking at those particular projects. Something that's new that needs to be investigated.
At what point is it a budget issue that the chief needs to think about for him? And what point is it, like if one of the conversations we had was there's $20,000 tires. And that's an expense. So sure, that's a large expense, even though it's not technically fitting in all the things that go to a CIP. But if there's a $5,000 piece of machinery and the budget to kind of easily absorb that for the highway department, then does that have to be something that we do? And so what we're trying to say is what goes on the shoulders of the department heads to plan ahead in their budget? And you can say, hey, this year we need this, let's do it. And what just has to be discussed on an annual basis, planning ahead, having every single piece of information about that machinery ready to go.
I happen to continue on into the master plan and chapter, not sure what chapter it is, but fire and rescue is one of the chapters. And the first goal in this chapter is provide fire and rescue coverage to residents. And if you go back to that definition of a capital improvement from the IRS, it's I have it. It is prolonging the property's useful life, property, asset. If a fire truck is not one of our most important assets or pieces of property, I don't know what is. So we are prolonging its useful life, whether it's replacing it or buying that new piece of equipment that we need. So you know, I will go to death's door arguing that the fire truck is an asset that we need to protect and prolong its useful life.
And what we really want to do is just be able to do the work we're supposed to do for the CIP, which we can only do when we know what's defined.
Well, the thing is, you're going to have projects you're going to deal with. The project for replacing the fire engine, I don't have any problem if you want to work with the fire department and the fire chief. The fire chief knows what he needs.
Right.
And it's not like a new thing.
Yeah.
If he says, okay, we need a ladder truck, we don't have a ladder truck. And I would expect you guys to have a conversation with him. Well, why do you need the ladder truck? What are you going to do with it? How much is it going to cost? How much are you going to pay for it?
Sure.
Those are the kind of things. But the thing is, you're going to be wasting your time if you say, okay, we need to replace engine number 1. the chief already knows what he needs. You're replacing something that's the same. If it's different,
Yeah.
then I would expect you guys to be involved. But the thing is, you guys only have a certain amount of time, you're all volunteers.
Right.
So you have to say, prioritize, what is the new things that are coming up? And you have to have conversations with the departments to find out what they're thinking about. But I don't see you, spending time in terms of the tractor tires. Steve knows what he needs. That's a waste of your time.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'm not saying a dollar amount. I'm seeing what's the scope of the project and what kind of investigation does it need. So I kind of answered your question, but I didn't.
No, because this is the thing. We go to sit down to do the work, and we look at an item, and we're ready to work on it. And then there's a discussion that goes around for about an hour sometimes about if that should be discussed or not. And I have to tell you, we're all frustrated. So we would like to say, is it everything, if it's absorbable in the budget, why do we even need to talk about things that are less than $20,000? Is there a number that we can say, you can put it in your budget, you think you need it, put it in your budget, that's just, and then every department head knows, okay, I know the number, where I don't have to worry about what it is or anything. As a person who's applying for grants and things, he can say, this is in our CIP, that's why. And there are times when you can say, if it's in the CIP, that it's already something planned for, and you can say, this is the year it's planned for. This grant offers, like a truck we're working on with the highway department right now. There's some trucks that are planned out farther down the line, but if we can show them we're not gonna replace them till this year, they could possibly give us up to 80% of the value of that vehicle because it's in a CIP. So these are important facts to understand. And so what are the items that the CIP going forward will need? And I appreciate that's true about the fire chief knowing that he needs a truck, but let's say the fire department head said, we need a truck, I know exactly what it is, don't worry about it, I got it. And then he gets, promoted to some amazing job somewhere and we lose him. And then the next fire department head doesn't remember that he needs to plan for that, or who knows what, like where is the place that that's gonna be? As long as we know where that is, great, then go for it and move forward, and we'll just say, we won't do that. But just what is the?
It occurred to me that there are two kinds of purchases. One, as Scott was pointing out, is that new piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the purchasing that new piece of equipment is actually a different figure than replacing an existing piece of equipment.
Yep.
That existing piece of equipment we're gonna replace, that's gonna really impact someone's budget that we need to save for, maybe that's $20,000 or $30,000. But the new piece of equipment that actually adds to the inventory of the fleet, well, maybe that should be a smaller item, like 10 or 15,000.
And the thing is, wherever we decide, we can always tweak it later on. This is not written in stone. And
We just want to be able to get some work done
Yeah.
for you guys.
I want you to get work done, because if you sit there and talk for an hour about something, you never get a resolution, you're wasting your time.
Yep, that's why we're here.
I don't want you to waste your time.
Why we're here.
Well, I really want to commend John on the job he's done with the financial planning
It's
tool.
amazing.
It, today, includes absolutely everything that would be in a CIP. It includes a whole lot more.
Right.
And so, but John has already done that work of going to the department heads and, okay, what do you need? And so it's gonna make our job a whole lot easier, knowing everything is in there. I think we should circle back with the department heads and say, okay, in terms of the master plan, are there other things that are not in there that we need to consider, figure out what year it goes in, John's tool goes out way beyond 6 years, which is really important for those big items that need to be purchased and replaced at some point, so.
Yeah, one of the things, this is just my opinion, but one of the things that kind of bit us in the butt, if you will, the last big fire truck that we had in the CIP, it was in there for a little over $300,000. It ended up being way over $500,000. And we had to scramble to find that. One of the things that the financial planning tool does do, keep up to date in terms of what inflation is,
Yep.
Yeah.
because that wasn't included in there. So it's like, kind of like a, we need something to use everything, because there were certain things that the CIP that the planning board did that didn't include. So how do we deal with that? So it kind of grew from that particular need, and I think just based on the conversation I'm hearing here, if we can put another tab in there and let you guys, it's a public document, you guys can see it, and just include everything that you guys think should be in there.
Right.
In terms of, maybe there's things that you want to add, and.
Can we
those
have
are-
access to, what I'm concerned about is that in order for the CIP to do that, we'd have to have John at every meeting. And we want, like, can we have access to the working part of that so that we can look at the differences and see things? And I think that that's the concern we have, is that only one person can do that right now.
Well, at some point, we talked about it coming into the selectman's office. John was only the developer.
Right.
The idea is not for him to keep it until he's gray and walking around in the crutches and everything,
Right.
whatever, but, yeah, at some point, it needs to be turned over, but I don't know, I'm hearing conflicting things about the SharePoint thing. Is that actually working or not? Because you can place that document
I
in there.
believe the SharePoint is working for everybody except the technology committee.
That's
Which is ironic.
disconcerting. Because I think at some point, we have to have a conversation with Mr. Tappan as well, but, in terms of turning that over and putting it in there, so that people can have access to it. Maybe they get to have to look at it, but only like the selectman's office or John can tweak it. But I think that's something we can move toward, because you guys should have access to it so you can see it.
We have it on the town website in static form right now.
Yeah.
Denise has a link and an e-crier to it, but it's a static form.
Understand.
We were
You can't
trying,
use it.
right, we were trying to update it, so we wanted to update it and just say what's in it and what isn't, and we can't do that because we don't have access. So we have to like hand cross it out on a piece of paper and then ask John to update. So that's just a lot of extra steps. So if we could have access to it, then we could, and it's possible, we could have something in it that says this is a CIP item, go through, figure those out, and then someone else, if they want to change it the following year, but at least it's very clear, and you can have a tab that says CIP items, and then you can look at them and we can talk about them.
Yeah.
And our job becomes much less complicated and we get it done.
Well, John has been coming to our meetings. The last 2 meetings he's come, and he's been a tremendous help. And it would be great if he continued to come.
But that's up to him, but,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I think that's something we can work toward if we can get it on the SharePoint, so that, because you can assign who can gain access to it and who can change it too.
We clearly can.
And it's just an Excel file, right?
Thank you.
I don't know.
Question.
Yes?
So approving, the process with the FPT has been that the department heads make the additions and changes to it. But it's a select board that then decides, yes, that is going to come from the fund, or no, that's gonna come from some other source. Does the select board plan to continue that?
We're just asking the CIPs to be able to give a recommendation.
Yes.
See, because you have 2 different things here. The CIP provides a recommendation. The board makes the decisions on what you're
Yeah.
actually gonna buy.
Correct?
Um,
So where's the problem?
And, well, if it's in one tool, trying to figure out how we keep separate CIP recommendations, where they may recommend paying for something that, as you pointed out, and I pointed out, there are quite a number of items in there that are not paid for, like to the tune of millions of dollars, that are just, you're gonna do it, but there's nothing planned for it.
So can
And
you?
then, when you talk about, well, if it's a small item and there's enough money in the fund, we don't need to worry about planning for it because there's money there. I can tell you that as a trustee of trust funds, for one fund in 1 year, we wrote a check for $70,000, and not a single item of that we paid for was in the CIP. There's a whole bunch of items. Total was, I think, a little over 70,000, and none of that had been planned for. The roll-off truck That was a big one. So I think a second point here is be cautious when you say, oh, that's just a little item, so we don't have to plan for it. We don't have to save for it. Because we've seen little items add up to quite a bit.
Well, is it possible to have, I know it's possible, can we have a separate tab in there that's the CIP people? And they're the ones that put input into what particular things they want to include or not include? And in terms of what they're, like, when they think that particular thing will come up in terms of payment. And then I envision the select board still saying, okay, this is what the CIP is calling for, the CIP committee is calling for. What are we gonna include? What are we gonna include? Are we gonna include this? Yes, no? How much does it cost? Do we agree with when we want to have that particular purchase? But still, we're gonna be managing, I envision us still managing that particular process, because it's part of the whole budget.
So what items are CIP items, and how do we get to work on that project?
So, I'll go back to what I said before. You guys can include or not include whatever you feel like you should. The thing is, if there's a new project that's something new, you definitely should be working on that.
Many CIPs are written in Microsoft Word, not a spreadsheet, because they have a lot of discussion and analysis of what is that project, what is that thing, why is it needed, why is it more important than something else, and so forth. All those things that were read to you that the CIP can include. And yes, it has dollar amounts, but it doesn't make an attempt at saying, and this is everything that's going to come from Highway Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, because it recognizes it doesn't have everything in it.
I think this very much feels like our CIP meetings, and I really appreciate that. I just don't know clearly when we meet, what are we allowed to discuss and not discuss so that we can know when we've finished our topic. So would you like to come join us?
I'm not going to address this one. I'm just going to talk, I have my budget hat on for a minute here. One of the items, one of the calendar dates on the budget list is for a presentation by the CIP. Listening to this tonight, I think that presentation should be coming from the financial planning tool, because what the historically the budget process has relied upon the CIP spreadsheets that were prepared by the earlier iteration of this committee to arrive at how much money should be put in the trust funds every year. Those numbers have to come from somewhere. And at the moment, it sounds like the best source for those is the financial planning tool. So I would suggest the select board might want to consider having that group meet with, or that individual meet with the budget committee rather than the CIP, because it sounds like the direction you're heading with the CIP is that it's more a discussion of items that aren't even on any list at the moment. They're out there and we might want to do them. But the items that we're actually saving for are already in the financial planning tool.
So if the CIP doesn't do anything, does that affect our ability to get grants and things like that?
When I say, what do you mean, doesn't do anything?
Well, you're saying the financial planning tool is in charge of the CIP.
No, I said the financial planning tool would be used to help you folks decide on the numbers that go in the warrant articles for additions to the trust fund. That's different.
And what would we decide as the CIP?
Based on what I'm hearing here, it's more a discussion of possible future plans and the interaction of the plans that exist with the master plan. It's more a theoretical document.
Like, for instance, one of the things that I would like with the CIP people to look at is the highway buildings. We've got a few of them over there, and the Public Works Director wants to do some improvements. That needs some investigation. And we can put a plug number in there in terms of what we think it's gonna cost. But I think that's something the CIP could look into in terms of what is he looking for? What can we do? What will it cost? And those kinds of things. So I'm seeing you guys as our kind of like research team kind of thing.
So I come back to what I said to one of you the other day.
Yep.
Can the select board come up with a deliverable for our committee to
Yes.
give to you?
That would be great.
Yes.
Which is what?
Based on what you've told me, in terms of deliverables, you're kind of stuck, so I think that would be the best
That would
definition.
be, that's really what we need. We need to know what you're expecting us to have. We're happy to meet with the ABC.
Yep.
If the purpose of that meeting is to arrive at numbers for the warrant articles, I think that's
That's fine.
a different
That's fine.
discussion.
I think we'll let you off the hook this year, but not next year. But yeah.
I think you've got ODP guidance and you've got your RSA, but nobody from DRA or ODP is gonna come down here and drag you off because of what you created for a CIP. I think there's a broad variety of CIPs floating about from town to town. Some of them are, as John said, more narrative. Some of them are not. They are just listings of purchases that the town needs to make. And I have never heard of disciplinary action or court action against the town based on their iteration of what the CIP might be.
We could be the first. Actually, so to answer Katrin's question, how do we decide? One item that I think has been sort of missing from CIPs, and it was something that I pointed out years ago, and that is a ranking of priority. And in fact, one of the things that the municipal association points out as what must be in the CIP is classify projects according to the urgency and the need of implementation. So if we could develop a criteria to enable us to rank those projects and say, number one, these are urgent and, essential. If we don't replace these windows, this building is gonna rot to the ground, that sort of thing. So if you guys could help us with what is that criteria so we can rank the projects, I think that would really help.
So how would we do that? How would the select board, we'd have to have a separate meeting to discuss what
Other
rankings were.
towns do, this all CIPs I worked on, there was a ranking system.
Well, let's not recreate the wheel. So let's see if we can get some from, I know Durham has an excellent one.
Yeah, I think New Market has a good.
Yes.
Maybe borrow a couple,
Yeah,
take the best things,
grab some
decide,
copies for the committee.
and then realize we really don't have time to get much done this year. But
Well-
now at least we have some idea of what we're gonna do next year, which is a huge help.
Well, the pressure's off if we do the financial planning tool presentation
Yep.
instead of the CIP, so you guys can work around that one. But I think going forward, yeah, if we can have another conversation about the criteria, and if you guys want to start looking at things like the highway department's request, things like that, I think that, for me, that would be helpful, because I don't have time to go out and do all that research. And I don't think the department head has time either, so.
Would this include things like when we have the option of working on making a more walkable and bike rideable town, and we'd have an 80-20 on payment? Could that be part of that, since that's a
Yeah.
project and it's something?
It's an
that we
improvement
save
for the town, yes, definitely,
Because
definitely.
there's no
And
place
that's
else.
exactly.
It's even in the master plan.
That's one of the biggest purposes of the master plan.
Yes, but we have never had a chance to put it in anywhere because we've been tied up with the other
The
things.
master plan, this one runs out in 2026, so,
That's great.
And that's another thing, I think we mentioned it here a couple of times already. I would see if the CIP committee could also take a look at the master plan. Are we aligned? Are we not aligned? What can we do to be aligned?
right.
And I think that would be helpful too, because if we're going off in direction, the master plan says this way, then we need to do a course correction.
Yeah.
And I think if you, as your committee, can help us with that, that would be most appreciated.
I think that'll be a good conversation at our next CIP meeting.
Actually, I've just Googled Durham's CIP plan, and it's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
So not only do they have everything in here from, I don't know what this means, some fire truck replacement thing, to a police department vehicle replacement, to seasonal decorative lighting,
Gotta have seasonal
to
decoration.
the vegetation mulching head, I don't know what that means. But across the top, they have, where is the money coming from? The operating budget, bonding, state and federal, capital resolve, grants, trades, and others, and they have it's one page, that's it for, so a page and a half for each year. But then they have it for the next couple of years, so you can kind of see what's coming down the pike and where we think the money's coming from.
And you as a resident can just pop that open, look at it, get that information whenever you want.
well, I mean, I'm not a resident.
I'm just saying, if you were a resident of Durham, you could have that information at your
A
fingertips.
lot of that information is already in the financial planning tool, but this lays it out for the next 10 years, where they're looking to and where they're planning on getting the money from. Not everything, it gets less as the years go on.
Right.
But I think it'd be really interesting to have the CIP look at all of these projects in the financial planning tool and figure out the ones that don't have funding, where are we gonna try to get money from? Should we be prioritizing making a warrant article for them? Does it match up with with the master plan? And if there's something on there that we have currently that we're planning and it doesn't match up with the master plan, do we need to get rid of it?
That's a
Or
great
move
point.
it, or deprioritize it?
Love it.
Okay.
Mr. Tappan?
Just 2 points. I'd like to second what Selectman Bugby had to say about his example of the highway garage. That's an item, and along with something like the salt shed, that needs some significant analysis. And that would be something that the CIP committee could do, because it's something that the department head doesn't have the time for. And that is particularly looking forward. It isn't just, we need more space for this one truck. It's, what is the highway fleet size gonna look like 20 years from now? And if we're gonna put an addition on a building or build another building, what does it need to be to fit the needs for 20 years? And that really is a
Yeah.
planning exercise.
Yeah.
The other point I wanted to make is that right now we're 7 years into the master plan. Master plans can be updated in pieces. They can be updated section by section. It specifically says that in the guidelines. And master plan, you don't, not only do you not have to, you should not wait to the end of the 10 years before you update it, because otherwise you've driven all the way to the edge of your map. And now you have no idea where to go. So it really should be updated long before you get to the end of that 10 years. And it's 2026. We're in 2023. So we've only got, well, the master plan is at best just looking 3 years into the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other thing, the thing we brought up, John, about the highway department is, if you go to look there, they squeeze in their equipment that they have now.
Yep.
Are they gonna have more equipment in the future, which means, do you need more space to store that particular equipment? So, yeah, those are the things I'm looking for the CIP committee to do.
You're paying for their time when they have to fit those trucks in just in the right order, in the right way. Every time they go to put a truck back, they can't just drive a truck in wherever it goes.
Thank you. All right.
Can I ask a question of the committee? Because most of you, I think all of you are here.
Nope,
right?
you Brian.
Oh, you're missing one, Brian. So are you three comfortable with what we said, or do you still need something else? What's your thoughts? I want to make sure you've got what you need.
So I think the last thing I've mentioned is a ranking system.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's what we'll work on this year.
right.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
next year, we can start working on having something ready for
Okay.
this time.
Well, and I think once all the information is in the financial planning tool in terms of what those capital expenditures, then we can quickly create a CIP, especially if we have the ranking system.
Exactly.
Okay.
In 1 or 2 meetings, I think we can
Okay.
create that tab that references all the other sheets of this CIP.
I assume you all have Excel.
Mhm.
Could you give access to the committee on the version that we have at the moment? You'll keep the master, but give them so they can have it. They can play with it, do whatever they want with it. And then they
As
can
long as
have
John
access to
feels comfortable with how, that it's updated and has everything.
Excel, right?
I mean, we just met with
Yeah,
Steve today, so
Right.
there's.
So if, John, if you can send it to, you're in charge, right?
Yep.
So if you want to send it to all three of them, or just to Dave and Dave?
You just need to reset protections so that you
That's
don't
fine.
accidentally change formulas, which
But-
then would give you crazy results.
Okay.
And you can't copy it and then have it be a separate thing, like it can't be two of them, right?
Yeah, you can. This is a spreadsheet. It's a
As
spreadsheet.
far as they're marked non-official or something like that, you can
Yeah.
have dozens.
Sure.
Everybody
can
have
write
their
on
own.
and-
They're
and-
meaningless,
Great.
Yeah.
but
Well,
As
that
long as
would
they're
be,
workable.
I mean, if we were to create an additional tab that is a summary that references back, it wouldn't be a tremendous thing to recreate it, send it back to John and have it recreated, updated.
If you give them a copy, will the hyperlinks work to the,
No, he has on all of the files that are hyperlinked.
That's the thing that's hard, is that we would need, because we want to be able to add to those, we want to be able to.
Well, as long as we can add another tab and then create formulas that reference back to other spreadsheets.
what I'm referencing is, there's a hot link in there that pulls up, like, if he has like a quote for something.
Right.
That's what I'm asking, if you can
Yeah.
include those
Yeah.
too. I don't know if you can send those too.
you may be able to do that once you put it online
Okay.
more easily.
Well, in the interim, can you
So-
just give them access to what you
So That
have?
would be the tech committee. Well, I think, from what I heard, is that for this year, ABC is the group that really needs it.
But I think just to give them access so they can see it, 'cause that's,
Sure.
so, yeah, okay,
Um,
good.
But ABC, somebody from
Right.
ABC mentioned that that's where that decision-making is.
Yeah,
And so I'm happy to
yeah, if you
show it to
have
them,
the,
work with them, and explain how it works.
do you have the, when's the CIP meeting with the ABC?
Oh, it's November sometime, late.
So can we slip Dave Cedarholm out and slip John Tappan in for that particular slot if John's available? So if you could do a dog and pony show and you can show it to the ABC so they can see it, that'd be great.
It might be something you want to do earlier, which is just here's what it is and how it works, and these are all the pieces
Okay.
that you can stick stuff into.
All right.
And then maybe it's a second time when they decide
I
to,
don't think,
The ABC
That's not the goal.
isn't gonna need the
no, the
financial planning
ABC's not
tool.
going into the document and doing anything. You're just making a recommendation to the ABC, correct?
To the ABC about.
Well, just showing, because there's one tab on there that shows what needs to be deposited. That's what they
Yes.
need to
Yeah.
see.
That's what,
That's really all the
But
ABC
John's not
needs.
making the recommendation as a single individual, he's.
well, he's making a recommendation
No.
through the
Yeah.
FPT.
It should be.
Unfortunately, he's the only,
Well, we've
So-
all worked on the FPT, it's
Yeah.
not.
I know, but he's got the current numbers, right? And he's the one that,
Yeah, but we're talking about giving people access to that.
Well,
no.
no.
I don't think so, I think they just need, I think AC just needs to see that
Yes.
page that
I'm not
has.
making any decisions
No,
about what
no,
gets
we know
paid
that.
for and how.
No.
So,
Yeah.
You're just presenting the document.
right now, the document for town building says, for the coming fiscal year, we need to appropriate more than $800,000
Yep.
for what's listed there.
So,
Is that including if the new town building, which we're gonna be working on?
It is including the new town building,
I
but
think
it's
we have
not
to take that out.
including any of the other town stuff.
So can we take the new town building out, because that's gonna have to be dealt with separately?
well, I think that, what I'd like to do is have him do the presentation in terms of the tab that says how much, and if they say, whoa, what is this 800,000? He can go to the other tab and show them what's in it. And we can do a scenario in terms of, if you take out all the town buildings, this is how
So
much it
just the
is.
one we're trying to build, just will need to do it more. Okay, thank you.
So if you're available, Mr. Tappan, that would be great.
Okay.
So Denise, if you can let, find my space in on her name, Stacy Waits, that we'd like to have Mr. Tappan take over the CIP thing. And also, I think there's a place there that we're supposed to be discussing something after, like, social agencies. Maybe we can have John come in and do a preview or something, maybe, I don't know. It's her meeting, so
That's a late night.
Yeah.
That's 8:00.
it's past my bedtime.
Yeah, it's way past my bedtime, people, sure, we're heading to.
But definitely not the CIP thing. Yeah, ask her what she'd like to do. It's her meeting.
Why don't we have them present the first time, and then if there's need to add another presentation, we can add it to something
But the
else?
CIP is near the end, isn't it?
It's in the end.
All right.
I don't think, the only time that you would have is when the ABC meets by itself, which means you can come, but
Okay. All right.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we all set on old business, new business, other business? Do we have a,
I do need a quick non-public.
all right.
I don't know, Tom, are you? Wait, Tom.
All right, move
I was
to
racking my brain trying to remember what I forgot.
Second.
Session, I haven't finished. I just can't sure, it's okay with me. RSA 91-A:3, which one are we doing, A or?
A&L.
2L.
Thank you, John.
Roll call vote.
Okay.
Oh, you're seconding, right?
Second, again.
Mr. Bugby?
Thank you.
Ms. Hawthorne?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Pastor, yes. Moved. Have a great night, everybody. Here is the, good night, thank you.
I'm trying to get Catherine Fisher another award.
Oh, yeah? What's the award potential?
Citizen of the Year.
Oh, wow.
I was talking to Candace Pratt Stigler, and she says they have, that's an award that they give every year, and they're having a hard time getting people nominated. And I said, she says, is there anybody else from Lee that's deserving? I said, hey,
She's done so much with the school, obviously with the commission too, but
Yeah.
especially with the school.
well, I told her that's something to look at, but she nominated Judy. So it's like, but the other towns, there's like 5 other towns, and nobody's nominated anybody. It's like,
Wow.
so people in Lee are extra special, I guess.
So,
Remember a while ago, I asked you about the agenda file names?
get paid?
And one parentheses that added to the. I had downloaded.
Another
agenda
sweater, second
Friday.
transition
And then I
time.
looked at it online again on Sunday.
Mhm.
It had the same file
No,
name,
here, it
except
feels like
the
it
other
was you.
file name was a space,
Mhm.
one in parentheses.
That was in
Well,
January.
that's some
Oh, yeah, I
computer
did
thing.
that.
That's not you changing the name, that's some computer thing, because
Whoever paid your dues for last year.
last week, no, last week, with a state agency, I downloaded from one of the state agencies guidelines, and it has a 3 at the end of it. And I looked at the previous one I downloaded, because whenever I download them, I add a date at the end. The previous one I downloaded had a 2 at the end of it, and the one before had a 1 at the end of it. So I compared them in the PDF editor that can do comparison. The files were all exactly the same. So there was something in that computer system that, I don't know, like when it gets moved from, from being on one server to another or something.
Well, you know, I noticed once when I sent him a file, and then he sent it back to me, that happened. It had a parenthesis with a 2, and I was like,
Yeah.
and I didn't pay close enough attention, and I went and I saved it and did that, and then I went back and looked, and I was like, how did that end up on there?
Yeah.
And so then I went back, and I was like, oh, it was originated from when he sent it to me, and I'm like, how did that happen? So yeah, I think it's somehow in the transition of
Yeah,
things.
I mean, this was some guidelines from the state agency.
That's weird.
And I was looking to see if there was an update. And I thought, oh, there's a new one. Well,
It
there
is,
wasn't.
no, it was the same documents.
So
Yeah,
something.
same with his, it was the same documents, he was sending back to me.
Yeah, so something in the computer systems just add that.
Wow, that's funny.
And then it's worse from the state. I've actually run into several where, this is from DOJ, they don't stick dates on it.
Oh.
They write this guideline document and there's no date on it. So that was the one that I was, I better go look for a new one. And I thought it was, but it wasn't.
You don't date things. You get things and they sign them and they don't date them.
Yeah.
What? How do you know when there's no date on a document?
This was one from DOJ and it's talking about RSAs.
Yeah.
Well, what good is that without a date?
I know. So this whole, this thing is running still, but so the send, I'm gonna try to see if I can squeeze you in earlier than that CIP one. I'm gonna talk to Stacy and see if we can squeeze this in sooner. But there is something that I should give them ahead of time, and I don't think it has to be the whole CIP, because that thing is so confusing.
The whole FPT.
I mean, the FPT. Jesus, the whole FPT. But I think that whatever we're going to be looking at, and this in my head, I'm thinking ahead, but whatever we're gonna be looking at to put into the warrant articles for this year, I don't know if you wanna pull that out, or if you wanna, is there a page, is there a highlight, is there something that you can, like when you come in that night, is there gonna be something that you're gonna put together for them, that you're gonna, you know, pull things for this next year, for this next March, that are gonna go on the warrant articles? Can you put something together so I can give it to them ahead of time?
Does John gonna know what those warrant articles are?
Like I pointed out.
I know,
right
you're not,
now-
you don't wanna make the decision.
No, I can't.
No, you
That's not
can't,
the
I know, but not the
But-
decision, but like, is there are there like,
I pointed out that right now, town building says that you need to appropriate $800 and something thousand this coming year for everything that's listed under town buildings. And there's still a couple $1 million worth of stuff that just has an X, and that's not being counted. And this is where, it's not up to me.
no, I know, I
to
thought
make
maybe
that
there
decision.
was,
It's the board.
I just thought it was more focused, like it was more streamlined. I don't really.
Do you know how they used it last year? They made decisions about what they were gonna do for appropriations. They decided on the dollar amounts. And then I got called in and we updated the FPT
Based on,
to change what was gonna be done in order to make the answer come out to what they'd already decided.
yeah,
And that's,
I know,
it's backwards.
I know.
Well, part of it, maybe I should,
And
I'm just wondering what,
so it seems like the ABC could be a group that says, yes, we're gonna do that, and we will not.
yes, they can only make recommendations.
Correct.
So they can narrow it down, but I kind of thought that maybe it would be narrowed down before it got to them a little bit, you know, like I thought, working on this whole thing, because I don't have time to look at it and follow it, and quite frankly, numbers drive me nuts. But if they, you know, as you're working on this with department heads, I kind of thought
It's
that,
only been Steve so far.
well, I know, because he's got the bulk of it, right? But you work with them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
No,
No?
no, Steve is the only one. And the only way that came about is because Steve apparently contacted you and asked, you know, do you have a copy of the FPT so we can work on it? And then I
That
sent
was
that
the
to
first
him.
time you guys got together?
Yes.
Ever?
No, first time this year.
Oh, this year.
First
Oh,
time this
okay.
year.
Okay.
And we spent a couple of hours this afternoon.
Okay.
And there were many items that he just didn't talk about. We didn't talk about parking lots, and we
Yeah,
didn't talk about
yeah.
town hall
Yeah.
and so forth.
But this FPT has been going on now for what? A year, 2 years? How long has it been going?
So,
Okay, so through this process, there hasn't been, like, things have been put into, okay, this is 8 years, this is,
yes,
you know,
those are
okay,
there. But
those are there, but-
what hasn't been done is to have someone look at it and say, $800,000, that's crazy, we're not gonna do that. So therefore, if we're not gonna do that, we either have to decide, this thing that we have for 2026, it's gotta be 2038. you know, or we just can't do it. And that's one of the things that the tool is supposed to allow them to do, that they never had before, is to list all these items. It says, if you want to be able to pay for all these items in this schedule, here's what you have to set aside. And instead of just deciding to change that, they should say, we have to move these things up. Instead, what they did was they just put an X saying, no funding plan, no funding plan, no funding plan. And it's sort of like just eliminated all those things. Like right now, the town hall, we know it's gonna cost
year and saying, okay, we need, that they would narrow it down, and they would say, okay, this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna recommend for the warrant article coming up. This is what we're gonna, narrow it down to $1 million, warrant article, right? And this is what we think, and then give it to the board and say, okay, you need to narrow it down to this, but this is what, these are the things that we think, and then you pick. That's what I thought they were gonna do. So they were gonna take your document and pick out, okay, we absolutely have to move up. I'm just gonna use this as an example. We have to move up a fire truck. We have to move up the salt shed. We have to move up, and move up all these certain things. And they're gonna have a list of things and say, this is what we need to do. He talked about priorities. Yeah, I kind of thought that was already happening. Thought that that's what they were gonna be doing, and putting it in a list form and saying, really simple, just, okay, we need this for this much, and this for this much, and then presenting it and saying, this is what I think it needs to go on the warrant for projects. I don't know. And projects could be a fire truck, projects could be a project could be.
Once they start setting dollars on it, so within the 20,000 or 25 or whatever they use, then you have a lot of things that are going to be paid for from the fund. Because the select board, when the fire chief or whoever is standing there say, I want to buy this, they're gonna say, yeah, and it'll come from the fund. The trustees of trust funds, we're gonna say, just, is it properly authorized? Do we have the documentation? Does it fit the purpose? Yes, we write the check. We have no authority to say, oh, but you didn't put that in the CIP, you didn't want to save for it. We can't say that. We just, it fits the purpose of the fund, documented it, and it was properly authorized, and write the check for it. And like I said, we have 1 year we're going to reimburse the town for moving $70,000 out of town buildings. Not a single item had ever been planned for. And that was moving $70,000. That was before the FAT. So if the CIP is going to set a dollar limit and nothing below that gets in, then you're going to be skipping a lot of stuff. I really think that what Scott was trying to recommend would be a big advantage. Because like the expansion of the highway garage, it's needed. The question is, how big, how much to expand it? Is it just 2 more bays? And that needs some analysis and looking forward, like, how is the town growing? Are the roads being managed? How long does it take to fall down to remove more trucks, etc.? And that's the kind of planning that is needed.
All right. Move to seal the non-public minutes. Do we need to seal the non-public minutes? I don't know.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.